Hey, welcome back to the Coffeehouse where we are brewing up something Agile flavored. I'm going with that. I'm going with that for now. My name is Vic Bonacci. I am not only your barista, I also am a certified Scrum trainer. So I do teach some Scrum classes. I've been around Kanban teams. I've used a lot of extreme programming practices with teams as well. So I think that these all fit together. I'm saying that because I just got done teaching the topic, and so I like to share the fact that I'm not just a guy who knows Scrum, I was also a traditional project manager for a long while too, so I know my way through the PMBOK as well as the Scrum Guide. How's that for you? Today we're going to be doing one of my favorite activities. It's time to spin the wheel once again, so let's have a go. As always, if we land on a blank square, I will just continue turning in this, what would this be, counterclockwise direction until we land on something that has a card on it, something that we can talk about. All right, ready? I am. Ding, 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 ding. This one here, yellow. It says, are you ready for this? It says, what are the benefits of pair programming? Isn't that funny? I was just talking about extreme programming, which is where this concept of pair programming became popularized. Now, pair programming, like the other elements, the other practices involved in extreme programming, was out there in the wild. It was a practice that some teams and individuals were using, but it wasn't until Kent Beck and his team kind of found this as well as other practices and tried them out and assembled them in their collection of practices that they ended up calling extreme programming. They ended up writing a book on it, and wouldn't you know, I've got the book right here. Extreme Programming Explained is the first book in a set of books, and this is the one where they introduced the concept of pair programming. So this question says, what are the benefits of pair programming? Let me first tell you what pair programming looks like. You've got traditionally, you've got two programmers, two people developing the product. They don't strictly have to be programmers, but let's roll with the fact that they're both programmers. And they're sharing one computer. Now, if they're in the same place, then they're sitting next to each other. Excuse me. Need a little sip of the coffee here. If they're sitting next to each other, they've got two pairs of eyes on the code as it's being written. One person is hands on keyboard. We call that person the driver. And the person next to them is giving the driver directions on what to write, how to phrase the code, what methods to use, what to call the variable, etc. That person we call the navigator. So just like in a car, you've got a driver, hands on the wheel, and a navigator telling them which way to turn, etc. Here in pair programming, we've got one developer, hands on keyboard, but they're not writing what's in their own mind. Rather, they're taking insight and direction from their partner here, the navigator. And the navigator speaks it out loud. Maybe there's a quick conversation between the two, and then the driver will type that into onto the code base, right? Into the computer, as it were. So that's kind of what pair programming looks like. And then after they do that for maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever they decided on, they exchange roles so that the driver becomes the navigator and vice versa. There are many benefits to pair programming. Now, first off, let me say what looks like the opposite of a benefit, a drawback. For example, maybe there's a manager or just someone from outside the team who is wandering by and they happen to observe two people doing the work of one. What's going on here? They may think, why am I paying two people to do the work of one? Or isn't that going to be slower? So that's kind of where the drawback ends right there, because yes, at first, when the two people are just getting to know what pair programming is, it may be slower initially. However, that doesn't last too long. You will see that if two people are working together, I really need to get the frogs out of my voice here today. We are not only communicating, but we're improving our communications. We improve the way that we can speak about the code to another person rather than keeping it all internal the whole time. We're sharing our thoughts, our insights, our ideas, our imaginations with each other, and so we're developing our own communication skills. Benefit number one. Benefit number two says not only are we communicating, but we're learning from each other. The navigator is learning from the driver and vice versa. We're learning about our own ways that we develop code, our own writing styles. We're learning about the code itself. We're learning how to make better use of the code that we're using from each other. We're also learning about the product that we're developing, the features that we're creating together. We're learning about things from a kind of a customer's perspective as we're communicating together. So we're not only increasing the knowledge of the person who's driving or the navigator, but both people are increasing their knowledge together. In fact, in the book, Extreme Programming Explained, there's a quick story from Ron Jeffries, who was on one of these early pairs. And he was a senior dev, and at the time, the story goes that he thought, well, I'll give this young whippersnapper a chance to come along, sit beside me, and maybe I'll teach him a thing or two. You know, as a senior dev, you might think that you know quite a lot more than a junior dev, and that may have indeed been the case. However, it's folly to think that you know everything at any given point. In fact, Ron went on to say that it wasn't long before that young whippersnapper was able to teach Ron a thing or two about the way that he was approaching the code from maybe a fixed perspective for a longer time. This younger dev was asking questions out of genuine curiosity that was helping Ron kind of see other ways, other alternative ways to do the coding. So the benefit here is that each person is raising their own level of knowledge. It's kind of the overall knowledge about the product and the code is being raised here. In addition, because you have two people always focused on the code, you've got two pairs of eyes on the code. It's as if you're doing a real-time code review. Isn't that great? So you're able to identify potential bugs and defects right there in the moment. Imagine if you were working by yourself and you didn't catch that defect. It goes off, and maybe a few days later some tester looks at it and they find the defect and they kick it back to you, and then it's another day or two before you get to fixing it. You're scratching your head going, what was I doing 5 days ago? Why did I do this? Oh, I get it. So it takes you maybe a little bit longer to fix it. Still not impossible, but maybe it takes you an extra half hour or something to understand where you were 5 days ago when you wrote this code. Now imagine that code goes off and gets put into production with that bug still there. Then it comes back to you on the team, and maybe you look at it and you say, after a year, like, did I even write that code? I don't recognize that. Is that mine? Or you're not on the team at all, and your team, the rest of the team is left kind of looking at that code saying, well, that was Vic's code. None of us know what he was doing there. It takes a lot longer to resolve that defect or that bug. So you're pulling quality forward because you have two pairs of eyes on it the whole time. You're forcing this code review in real time. That's another huge benefit of pair programming. In addition, if you're pairing with multiple people throughout the team, you're spreading that knowledge across the team. You're also increasing the level of code ownership across different members of the team, and that's a huge benefit to have everyone on your team able to look at the code and understand what it's doing because they had some hand in building it. If you couple pair programming with any of the other technical practices in the Extreme Programming collection, you're going to find that you can double or triple your productivity gains because of all the different ways that these practices build upon each other. Like, for example, test-driven development or refactoring or collective code ownership. These are just some examples that you can layer on with the pair programming. One final bit of advice I would say is if you enjoy this idea of pair programming with two programmers, try pairing with other people throughout your organization. A Scrum Master could pair up with a product owner and break a feature down into stories. Or maybe a product owner could pair with a stakeholder or a tech lead and create some user stories. Maybe a tester can pair up with a designer and come up with some problem that they're trying to resolve. And again, you can still change places and try different ways of communicating to each other so that we can pass that knowledge on to each other. Hey, I said one last thing, but try this as a challenge to yourself. If you're already trying pair programming, take it to the next step with mob programming. Mob programming is this idea of, instead of two people at the same computer doing the work, now you're inviting the whole team to participate. Again, one person is the driver, one person is the designated designated navigator. The other people are in the car. They're also in the car metaphorically, but they're also along for the ride, paying attention to the road ahead, contributing to the discussion, tuned into what's going on so that when they cycle to their turn at the wheel, as it were, at the keyboard, they're also up to speed. So it raises the whole team's level of understanding and appreciation of the code. That's it. Pair programming in a super small nutshell. Hopefully you got something out of today's brief discussion. I'm really glad that you were here, and I thank you for your time and attention. Once again, you can find me on a number of places: agilecoffee.com, onlinescrumclasses.com, onlinescrumclass.com for my classes, and Agile coaching cards if you wanted to pick up one of these nice little decks of cards that I sometimes use here. As always, I ask you to go out there, be productive, be agile, and enjoy your coffee with friends.